wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney sending a clear and strong message to his country and to the White House as he prepares to lead his nation through a trade war that his country did not ask for. Carney and his Liberal Party secured a narrow victory last night, and while Conservatives did gain seats in Parliament, the Conservative leader lost his own seat. Months ago, these results, they seemed improbable. The Liberal Party was bleeding support after maintaining control of Canada for over a decade. But in the aftermath of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation and Donald Trump waging a trade war on the nation he derided as America's 51st state, the Liberal Party capitalized on the push within the country to fight back against Trump and Trumpism. Carney is set to host Trump as part of the G7 summit in mid-June as steep tariffs remain in place between the two nations. Joining us from outside the White House, CBC News D.C. correspondent Richard Madden. Charlie is back with us. All right, Richard, what is the mood in Canada after the aftermath of these results?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think the mood could be summed up as surprising and a complete stunner of an election. As you noted off the top, the Liberal Party of Canada's brand was underwater. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's polling numbers were dismal, and they were set to head to a absolute obliteration on Election Day. But when Mark Carney replaced Justin Trudeau as a leader of the party and eventually Prime Minister, he made fighting Trump and his tariffs the centerpiece, the cornerstone of his campaign. And Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot in Canada, but he was sure the elephant in the room. When Canadians went to the ballot box, they were faced with a choice. It was either change or who's strongest to stand up to current President Donald Trump. And extraordinarily, Trump himself posted on a social media site the day Canadians went to the election, basically endorsing himself, throwing those insults about the 51st state. And that really, in a sense, tipped the scales to Mark Carney to really bring his party up from the ashes and lead a minority government in Parliament.
Charlie, I saw your facial response when you heard that Donald Trump managed to somehow get on social media, affect the results of an election in what I think he would perceive to be the wrong election. That is the message discipline that we are accustomed to.
Yeah, for people who think that Donald Trump, always has a strategy, he's playing four-dimensional chess. What is the strategy here? He managed to tank the Conservative Party of Canada. He had a chance to see the election of somebody who would be kind of an ally. And what did he do? By continually trolling Canada, by pushing this absurd, ridiculous idea that they should become our 51st state, he has alienated one of our oldest and closest allies and friends. And I think the most disturbing thing about this is what it's the long-term damage that it's done to our relationships with our neighbors. It's one thing to lose an election, but before Donald Trump came on the scene, was any American actually mad at Canada? Was there any reason for Canada not to trust and like America? And look where we are right now. We're seeing this pattern all around the world where America first became America alone. And so many of our friends now wonder, are we still friends? Can we trust you? Can we rely on you? And are we ever going to be able to put that relationship back? And I think it's going to be much more difficult than we think. But again, what an extraordinary turnaround in Canadian politics, almost completely because Donald Trump mishandled his own politics so badly.
Richard, America first becomes America alone, becomes America last, and that is in part because you have folks like Mark Carney saying, we're going to start thinking about what this looks like without America. We're going to look for new trade partners. We're going to build new alliances. Given that is the mandate he is coming in with, what is that likely to look like in the next few weeks and months?
Right. Well, we heard Mark Carney look at, made this part of his campaign, a former central banker, former governor of the Bank of England. He's already talking about strengthening ties with Europe, where he has a tremendous network there. He's also looking at skepticism, saying on the campaign trail that, this relationship that Canada has with the U.S. is over. And we're seeing this reflected with this stunning moment of national unity by Canadians against the administration and the United States. We see this illustrated by liquor stores are moving American whiskey, American wine. We're seeing Canadians cancel their vacations to New York, to Vegas, to Florida, to California, and really pulling together this country united against this president. And this is perhaps the most Canadian of examples. Canadians are booing the Americans at hockey games. Canadians are normally very polite, but this really cut deep with the Canadian public. So when Mark Carney identified that who's best to stand up to Trump, that reversed his party's dismal showing in the polls, vaulting him to lead the party to square off against President Trump. As you noted off the top, the two will meet face to face, if not before June. They will meet face to face on Canadian soil when Canada hosts the G7. So it will be interesting, and it'll also be a major test for Mark Carney, who's been a technocrat leading central banks, but this is the first time he's leading a nation and clearly captured the emotion from the Canadian public on election night.
I have to take us to break, but real quick, I do want to read this quote from Republican Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska, who told Politico's Jonathan Martin, quote, "The Liberals in Canada were losing big until our president kept mocking Canadians, our neighbors and close friends. He made Canadian Liberals great again."